Hey guys, it's the Degenerates here. My name is Juan.
My name is Marce.
It's been about a year and some change, somewhere around there, that we've been doing this podcast, putting out content. And in a lot of those conversations, we've done about close to 50 episodes now. But in a lot of those conversations, we have had a ton of fun. We're still putting a lot of that info and a lot of that content out there for you guys. We're really excited about it. Please engage with it as much as you can. We get a kick out of reading comments, good and bad, and we have a blast showing up and knowing that we're going to record. However, we have ran into a little bit of a unique situation that we did not anticipate at all.
For sure.
In our conversations, we often have landed on the idea that our Latin, Hispanic, I don't know how you would describe it, Latino experience has been a very sensitive topic on the podcast. Maybe not in the moment, but after the fact, we've talked about how our experiences as Latin people, as Hispanics, as Mexican Americans, has really impacted the way that we have grown up. And we've realized that there's a little bit of an identity crisis. That's what it is. I might as well just lead with that. We're starting a new segment called Identity Crisis because of this exact thing. Our Latin American experience has come into question a lot in our conversations, only because we've realized that we have not been tied to our history as much as we thought that we did. Yes, we have Latin American culture. Yes, we have Mexican customs. Yes, our parents are Mexican. Yes, right? But the Mexican American experience specifically is unique. Something that our parents can't help us with, something that only other Mexican Americans can relate to. And I'm sure it's the same for other people, other Hispanic people, other Latin people that come from different parts of Latin America.
Absolutely. I think there is a unique experience that is like shared with pretty much every Hispanic American that is, you know, in the United States, whether it is in Texas, California, Alabama, Florida, wherever it may be, New York, Chicago, all over the United States, there are people like you, me, and Juan, all of us, we share this unique experience of not being enough of one thing or the other. Like we were recently watching just the movie Selena, for instance, and Selena's dad in the movie says, "We are not Mexican enough for the Mexicans and not American enough for the Americans." That quote really dug deep. The minute we heard it, we were like, that's it. That's what we feel. That's what all of us as Hispanic Americans feel. It's, I don't feel like I'm enough of one thing or enough of the other. Where do I fit in? Are we just a subgroup of people? Are we all collectively the same? Is it the same for somebody who's from El Salvador and not from Mexico? How does that, kind of cross over? That's pretty much what identity crisis is we want to talk about all of the things that we feel, little, quirks and phenomena that we might see, things we find interesting, things that we want to delve deep into, which is for us specifically, our Mexican heritage, our history, the cuisine, the folklore, the customs, and little things here and there that we might see or notice in American culture that kind of throw us off, or funny things like, for instance, Cinco de Mayo, where it was very, very interesting to see the way that it functions here in the United States compared to the way it functions in Mexico. And it's little things like that that we really want to focus on and we really, really want to dive deep into. And you guys are welcome 100% to give us recommendations, tell us what you want to learn about, little things here and there that you might be interested in, or even just sharing your experiences as Hispanic Americans. And we want to talk about it, share with it, say, hey, I felt that too, or hey, I remember that too. Little things like that are 100% welcome here with you guys. And, we just want to keep that
And
going.
I think that's the point. I think ultimately what we want is we want to start bridging the gap of information. I think
for sure.
I think ultimately there is American history that we learn, right? And by no means is this segment going to be belittling any kind of American history. If anything, what we're trying to do is add to it.
Yeah.
There is so much rich history of Latin people here in the country that we've been doing a lot of research about, that we've been really, really diving deep and realizing a lot of things that just aren't in the history books. And to give the history books the benefit of the doubt, it's just, history is just so dense. It's so dense, sociologically speaking, anthropologically speaking. People are just are very, very, very complicated. So there's a lot of history of Latin people, Latin things, Hispanic heritage that kind of gets lost in the weeds, and we've been really trying to go and dig deep and find it. If anything, it's like I said, it's trying to bridge the gap and trying to provide some context to the history that you already know and how we as Latin people fit into that history, because a lot of times we don't get talked about. A lot of times we don't get included in those conversations, despite the fact that we were there, that we had, that there was, that Mexico and Latin America is right under the United States. It was being conquered at the same time that the United States was being conquered. There is rich history there and deep, deep, deep ties to us as Texans and Tejanos, Chicanos in California or Los Angeles. There is so much history that we want to dive into. We don't just want to talk about our Mexican roots, although we will dive into it because that's what we know the most. But essentially, this is a venture into the richness that is Latin America, Latin American history, and more importantly, our experience. Because like that quote, there has been plenty of times where we don't feel American enough for Americans, and we've had to really fight that identity crisis. And there's been other times where we are hanging around a lot of Hispanic people and we don't feel Mexican enough for the Mexicans. Yep. And that feeling of ambiguity, uncertainty, that struggle with that identity is something that we realized as having this conversation that we do share, and we've never really talked about it.
It's very unique. And it's very unique in that sense, in the sense that we can't... there's almost not a way to describe how I feel like a lot of Hispanics feel about this kind of situation, because a lot of Hispanics, some hold, resentment towards those feelings, thus, maybe manifesting it in different ways.
Right.
Some take that to mean like, oh, let's be really proud of our roots. And then some take it to be like, well, they go against the grain and go the opposite direction. And neither or any of them are wrong. At the end of the day, the way we all react to that unique experience is different, because the way a Latin American or a Hispanic American feels in Texas compared to the way they feel in maybe Chicago, New York, like these places that are not as like dense with the culture is different.
Yeah, I think this is going to be such a fun experiment to go through, because in the same, what we realize is that if we're feeling those things, then chances are that other ethnic groups, other Latin Americans here in the United States, immigrating into this country, great country, and their perspectives, they're probably feeling the exact same thing. Definitely. And mind you, there's going to be some really cool stuff that we're going to be diving into. There's going to be some really cool history that we're going to be diving into. There's going to be some really cool, information that maybe you knew, maybe you didn't know, that we're going to touch on. But we're also going to touch on some things that may be uncomfortable. We're going to touch on some things that you've seen that are only specific to our culture, like things like whitewashing culture, right? Things like what makes a true Hispanic, what makes something really Mexican, right? And how there really isn't a archetype for any of those things. There's not one way to be one thing, and we're gonna do our best to unravel it, and hopefully we'll have guests on, hopefully we'll have conversations with people, hopefully we'll bring you some great things and some great content, because we're really gonna dive deep and talk to as many people as possible, dive deep into Houston culture specifically because that's where we're from, but we're also going to really tie it into as many things as possible. When we travel, we're going to try to bring this segment in. So, you know, the Generous Degenerous podcast is going to, for the most part, stay the same. This is the set that we use. This is the environment that we use. We're just gonna switch it up a little bit because ultimately, at the end of the day, we are creative. We are creators. So the Generous Degenerous is gonna still bring you some hot takes and maybe some funny moments and some conversations between friends, the way that we originally intended for this podcast to be. But now we're also going to add things like this and this, like segments like this, the identity crisis segment, so we can add just a little bit more of individualized topic-specific content.
Yes.
So absolutely. We hope that you like our spiel. Hopefully it's not too long. Needless to say, we'll see you guys soon. Like always, like, subscribe, follow, do all of that jazz, and keep up. Right? And if you like what we're doing and if you like this segment, please comment, because especially for this segment,
we really want you guys' opinion on this one. We want to see. We get a lot of like, oh, I relate to that experience when we post little clips of like very similar situations to this.
We also get a lot of hate. We also get like a lot of like, because we do hot takes and we do like things that are supposed to rile people up, and we don't do it on purpose. It's just what we think. But we know that some people are sending mean comments and things like that, and we'll deal with that. That's not a big deal. But for this specifically, if you have this experience, we want to build a community. We want to build a community of people.
We really want to hear you guys' opinions. We want to hear you guys' ideas, experiences. We would love to be able to touch on, even if y'all want to have, we can have a whole ass episode of just talking about people's experiences and seeing, I remember that, stuff like that. You know what I mean? You guys are more than welcome, and please, and super encouraged to leave us messages, send us DMs, leave comments down below. Let us actually know that, what it is that you guys feel about stuff like this. If you want to know something that you know, whatever, don't worry. Whenever it comes around, like every month, different things are happening in Hispanic culture every single month of the year. So y'all better believe, Mexican Independence Day month comes around in September. We gonna get lit on that tequila.
Dia de los
Muertos. All the month of Halloween. Y'all are gonna know we're gonna be talking about all the folklore, the good stuff, the little nitty gritty stuff, all the different things, traditions, like during Christmas, Thanksgiving, all that stuff, everything, when we go and travel to Mexico, y'all are going to get episodes of us in Mexico, all of it, so feel free to just give us any of you guys' ideas or thoughts or whatever. We are more than happy to take them all in and include you guys in this, because honestly, we're all going through this identity crisis together. And that's the whole point. And that's what we want you guys to leave off with.
Yeah. But like the degenerates, and where we're trying to flip a bad thing into a good thing, we're trying to flip this crisis into a good thing also. So hopefully throughout this experience, we will find that we have a lot more in common than we think. And we'll find that we should be just as proud as where we come from, as much as proud of where we are currently in this country. So and that's ultimately the goal. So until next time.
Till next time, guys.
See ya.
Bye.